Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, your host. Time for a little Saturday morning conversation. I'm here with Gerry Hamilton of On Texas Football. Gerry, I tell you what, Saturday morning, here we are, pre-scrimmage. This is before the guys take the field around 9:45 on Saturday morning. We're going to talk a little bit about what we think we're going to see or might see, as well as what we've heard thus far from practice and where things are at each individual position. Thought that would be a good precursor. And then after the scrimmage, a little bit later today, we're going to come back and share a little bit with you guys what we've heard from the scrimmage itself. But let's get going and just go position by position, really, Gerry, to give people a little primer of sorts of what we're hearing. There is no surprise at quarterback. Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, Trey Owens in that order and have played in that order, really. Quinn Ewers looks, at least to me, looks like he's very confident, has his he's just, he is one of those guys that has every year taken another step. He's doing it again this year. I really feel strongly about that, trying to push off of that good end of the year run last year after he came back from injury, in my opinion. Arch Manning, solid number 2. Trey Owens, talented, very talented, trying to get his footwork down. But we'll see how that goes. You have anything you want to say about the quarterbacks before we move on to running backs, which is a little bit different with all the moving parts there?
Yeah, so I think Sark's scheme and what he puts on a quarterback takes time for these guys. So I'd say year one, Quinn had his associate's degree in Sark's scheme, right? Last year, he got his bachelor's degree. This year, he's going for his master's, right? I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. And he's very comfortable. I think him and Sark are fully on the same page. And I think that takes time. And I'll say this, even though Arch Manning hasn't started games at Texas, he's now in year 2 in this scheme as well. So Texas is working from a very comfortable position with their quarterback in Sark's scheme and how much he can put on Quinn Ewers in year 3 and in Arch in year 2, because Arch will get some playing time. And I'm not saying every game and situations, that's all for Sark to decide, but he's going to play. So I think Texas is in a really good spot there. Trey Owens, I think there's always a learning curve with these young quarterbacks. The biggest thing for the quarterbacks to me is keeping your eyes up at all times, right? When that Russian practice at Texas is different these days than when Sark got to Texas. You have Trey Moore and you have Colin Simmons. You have different guys screaming, different level of talent, screaming off the edges now. So that could lend a quarterback to drop his eyes a little bit. So for a young quarterback, what's it about? Keeping your eyes up all the time. And I think those are some natural progression things Trey Owens is going through right now. Arm talent, elite.
Yep. I think those are the things we need to look for. We'll hopefully be able to report a little bit on that later today. Running back. Cedric Baxter injury changed the calculus entirely. The entire idea that he was going to be the big back, kind of be the pound it guy that could also take it outside and participate in the pass game is now out the window. I mean, he's out for the entire year. Trey Wisner joins Jaden Blue in the backfield now as the 1-2 punch. They've got to wait and see who shows up out of Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark as a bigger back in this offense. It's going to be tough to hear too much, but we will know that they're going to run 2s versus 2s on Saturday. They will run Jarrett Gibson against the second defense. Same with Christian Clark, whereas before they might only get run with the 3s. Now they're going to get the ante upped a little bit, and I guess we'll have to wait and see and hear what they have what we hear about their play on Saturday.
Look, and it wouldn't be totally shocking to hear Jarrett Gibson got a series with the 1s just to see what he does in that scenario, because the reality is Texas hasn't played a game yet. Either Jaden Blue or Troy Weiss, they're going to get nicked up. It's a long season. It's a physical year grind coming up with Michigan and the SEC schedule. So the accelerated growth has to happen now for Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark. There's
really no waiting. There's no
waiting anymore. That's it. So you might get a series with the 1s, a few plays with the 1s for Jarrett Gibson, because the reality is he's an injury away from playing significant snaps in significant, meaningful games. So you got to prepare these guys for it, but their world changed 3 days ago. But look, I think Kyle Flood said it really well about when asked about Jordan Whittington in his press conference, in the coordinator's press conference. You can replace the production, but sometimes you can't replace the player. I think Jarrett Gibson can run the ball between the tackles as effectively as Cedric Baxter did last year. We don't know what Cedric Baxter would have looked like this year. Those guys normally make big jumps year one, the year two. So I think I think you can replace the production running the football of Cedric Baxter from last year. I don't know about this year, what Texas was thinking this year, but last year. But what everything else that goes with it. But I think Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner. I mean, look, injuries bring about opportunities. And Trey Wisner's calculus, we talked about how the freshman just really changed. Trey Wisner did as well.
Yes,
He's now goes to a guy that's going to touch the ball 10 to 12 times a game.
Yeah, you don't want – here's the deal with the freshmen. You don't want them drinking water from a fire hose.
Right.
At the same time, the training wheels are off.
Yes.
Let's go ride the bike and see what you do and adjust from there. Wide receiver is a little bit different, Jerry. We've talked about it this week. During Tuesday's practice, and I think I've heard this on Thursday as well as Friday. They didn't just platoon entire sets of receivers between the first and second group, Jerry. They actually mixed and matched groups. They ran some guys with twos and then ones. They ran them in and out using hand signals, all these kind of different things that you probably do as you get ready for real life play, right? And I think that, there is a group, however, that is standing out from the second group. That's the first six and the next guys. Now, will somebody like Parker Livingston or Aaron Butler push their way in? Only if they have a good scrimmage today.
Yeah.
Also, will anybody earn a definitive starting spot off of their performance in these scrimmages? How tough is Silas Bolden to cover when it's not just play after play and it's actually live action scrimmage, right? Yeah. Is he that good inside the confines of the offenses and not just plays designed for him, et cetera? I think that the wide receiver, if the group starts to separate or people separate within it, Sark said it, he's going to make them separate during scrimmage because play after play in practice, you see a little bit. Scrimmages are a little bit different because the stakes are higher, and he knows it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And look, I think if you look at this, we've heard Silas Bolden stepped up to the challenge, right? Yep. As a guy who wasn't in for the spring. We continue to hear Ryan Wingo is the only guy who's actually a singular position X receiver has continued to step up to the challenge. And I think we've heard quietly some really good things about Matthew Golden, his consistency. Quinn Ewers really likes what Matthew Golden does. Then you get down to, is Isaiah Bond, who is the most experienced, maybe not most experienced, maybe the biggest name coming in, is he ready to take a step now to where we start to hear more about him? Because it's been a little quieter with Isaiah Bond. He had the catch on the video, but there hasn't been quite as much fanfare with him. Is he ready to take a step now? When it becomes, I don't want to say live bullet, that's a crazy term, but scrimmage situations, right? I mean, walls closing in, let's say that situation. So that's going to be interesting to me. And then, look, Jonte Cook and DeAndre Moore should still have an advantage right now. They're the only receivers in year two of those six in this scheme. So they should have an advantage right now. If we start to hear about them losing that advantage in either one of those guys in any slight ways, then that means those other guys who are newer to the system are really coming on.
I have not heard that about Jonte Cook. I haven't heard as much about DeAndre Moore on the field at this point, but I have not heard that about Jonte. So good stuff. All right, tight end. The tight end position for today is really kind of straightforward. The first three right now are Gunnar Helm, Amari Niblack, who just was nominated for the Mackey Award for the nation's top tight end on Friday, and then also Juan Davis, a senior who's been around forever, it feels like, and is just now breaking into the lineup a little bit. Those three guys, Jerry, appear to be the first three. The interesting thing is who's after that. Well, I know for a fact that Jordan Washington's looked terrific. He is still with the third team and playing in the second group, but also Spencer Shannon has been talked about a little bit as an inline tight end, and whether or not he has a role in this offense from a tight end / blocking red zone type of situation. What happens in this scrimmage to change things? Do we get a sense maybe of how they're going to try to use Niblack in true game situations? Is that maybe the biggest piece that we're looking for? Or is it how they use Washington and or Shannon along with the other guys?
I think what'll be interesting to me is the spring game. One of the things that stood out for me in the spring game last year was Jordan Washington in the real football setting, where athleticism can make a play, right? The leaping play he made over the middle in that spring game. Pads are on, scrimmage situation, real football here. It wouldn't shock me if we hear about a couple of athletic plays being made on Saturday coming up here or later this morning, because to me, that's kind of what happens. Does Amari Niblack then in the screen game make a big play? Do they even run that stuff with him? But I don't think I think it's more the athletic plays that you're going to hear about, the grabs, the contested catch. Maybe somebody makes a big play in the red zone at tight end. I think those are the things you're going to hear more about. As far as the consistency in the blocking game, I think that's something you hear more over time, right, than a singular scrimmage. So I think this position is really strong. My question with Juan Davis is, and I don't know if we learn anything in the scrimmage in this type of setting, is does he become more valuable in the red zone in some way, in some short yardage as a blocker, even maybe from a second running back position as a blocker? Is there going to be some way that Sark is going to mix him in more in a role specified for him that really he's the only one that can go execute of the tight ends? I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the next few weeks.
All right. Offensive line is pretty straightforward, actually, right now. The question I have between the offensive and defensive line is how they're going to compete against each other and who the standouts are on each side. The one note that I would put out there for the offensive line is that Cole Hudson and Nato Umeozulu have both been rotating in with the first string at various times, at various positions, rotating between left guard and right guard, replacing both Hayden Connor and DJ Campbell. So we'll see if that continues later today in the scrimmage. And then also, Jerry, what is the rotation? What does it really look like on the defensive front as these guys go against one another? And then I'm in a whole other piece is pass protection of the O-line versus the edge rush pressure. So you have two different pieces there: the run game and how they keep the defensive tackles out of the backfield, as well as the pass rush / pass protection. Anything in particular there you're listening? Are you going to be trying to see if you hear a Trey Moore's name or a Colin Simmons or an Ethan Burke or Colton Vosick about getting after the passer? What there?
We've heard a little bit about Alfred Collins playing some 6'I". Mm-hmm. The only way that could be a consistent thing is if some of those interior D linemen are coming through for Texas. The only way that happens is if Lole, Norton, Savea, Aaron Bryant, Broughton, Jere Bledsoe, Alex January, if those guys are giving the staff confidence. So that's another thing. If we start to continue to hear more about that, then that's good news for the interior D line being as a whole, as a group. To me, that's a big one for me. Cam Williams and pass protection is a big one for me, because the best thing that's happened for Cam Williams to me is the recruitment of Trey Moore and Colin Simmons, because he is tested every day against some elite twitch guys. And Barron Sorrell
Texas didn't have that a year ago.
They didn't have that. They didn't have that. That is really good for Cam Williams because that really prepares him for life as a starter against this schedule because Texas is going to play some really talented defensive front. So I think that's the best news for him. And to your point about the guards, if you look, Neto, because he's good in the run game, pushes Hayden Connor in the run game. Cole Hudson, because he's so good as a pass protector, and he's good in the run game, pushes DJ in the pass pro. That I think Kyle Flood's working from a really good place there because, look, I think all those guys are going to play. And I will say this, if it wouldn't – it's not like they're going to rotate a guy for a guy during a drive, but if Texas ever gets a short field and they get a turnover and they start from inside the red zone, you might see a combination at one of those interior spots, maybe different than the starters. So I think Kyle Flood's working from a really good spot. I think one of the things I want to hear too, Bobby, is the young offensive tackles. What are they looking like? How are they progressing? Trevor Goosby's, Brandon Baker's, all of those guys. Kojo apparently has made a little bit of a move here in fall camp. What are those guys looking like? We know the center position maybe has the best depth it's had in many, many years. Jake Majors is a multi-year starter. Connor Robertson's a really good player. Daniel Cruz could be a star one day. This center position, and you have Cole Hudson who could play there too. The center position is actually probably the strongest on the offensive line from a depth position.
I think guard's pretty strong.
It is.
I think guard's pretty strong. Hey, especially with all that experience. I would say this, defensive tackle-wise, how much need to kind of monitor how much we hear Jermaine Lolay's name because he has not been always full go. They're trying to treat him with kid gloves a little bit as he gets back going again. They don't want to test him too much because of his injury history. I have heard nice things thus far about Tia Savea, who had a nice spring as well. Yes. Apparently he's coming on a little bit. At linebacker, Jerry, it's really Anthony Hill and David Benda's job to lose, and we don't think they're going to. Mo Blackwell continues to be a strong point. And then you have Leon Galafau, Darian Gillette, and a couple of others, Ty Anthony Smith included. What are your thoughts about the linebacker group? I think that what I'm waiting to hear is whether or not one of those guys comes up with a fumble, forces one, gets in a passing lane, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for me, it's all about the young guys. I think we know where we're at with Anthony Hill, Benda, Maurice Blackwell, right? I think that's a known. To your point about creating turnovers, I think that'd be big at the linebacker position. But I want to continue. I want the next time Sark comes to the mic, I want to hear him continue to just mention Ty Anthony Smith. Just make sure this guy receives mention because he should. Because Ty Anthony Smith's got a lot of positive reviews early on here. Plus 20 pounds, his play. He's clearly impressed in Nansen, PK, Sark. The more we hear about that, the more secure we feel about that position in the future. And if there's injury, Leon Galafau the same way. I want to hear those linebackers continue to really come on and they get mentioned. I think we know what the frontline guys are, their strengths, their experience, what they need to work on. But it's all about the young guys. But to your point, who can create some havoc at the linebacker position? Because that is a need outside of Anthony Hill.
Yeah, who else can make play? That's what I was saying. Who gets in the passing lanes? Who causes a fumble?
Who can create a little chaos?
Yep, and make game-changing plays, yep. Frankly. Secondary's a mash of what we're expecting here. It's not only the first group, which appears to be not only Jalen Gilbo and Jade Barron at star kind of mixing and matching, but also at corner you have Manny Muhammad on one side, Gavin Holmes on the other. You have the group of safeties and Andrew Makuba, Michael Taft, as well as Derek Williams. And then we believe Jelani McDonald is in that first group as well. I have to say this. You said the young guys. I'm really looking forward to probably more than anything two guys. Javion Cole at corner. He is still running with the third team a week into practice now. He's the transfer from San Jose State. Is he going to make a move up that list a little bit after a play in a scrimmage? And we talked about this the whole time. That's his ball game.
Real.
And so are we going to see a better player in that scenario than we would see out of a Warren Roberson or a Kobe Black or even a Gavin Holmes? I guess we'll get a better chance to understand that a little later today. And then also Jelani McDonald, Jerry.
Yes.
In real game situations, does he get lost? Does he communicate well? The other three have played a lot of football already at safety, for not just for Texas, but even for Clemson. They played a lot of football. They know how to communicate. How is Jelani McDonald's football IQ in a scrimmage setting as opposed to just in practice? He got beat at least once in the spring game a little bit. Yeah. Did not look great. How has he improved with that seasoning? You agree with all those comments?
100%. And the other thing is, I think it's time to start hearing more about Makuba as well. Because look, there is a transition from scheme to scheme, right? There's going to be some differences. But I totally agree with you on Jelani McDonald. But it's also Makuba. It's been quiet's not bad, but it's still been quiet, right? So you'd love to hear about him making a big play, because the one thing I look at with the safety position, it's kind of the same as the linebacker position, which you were just talking about. Texas needs guys to create some turnovers, more turnovers this year at that position, if you ask me. And that could be Derek Williams, didn't have an interception his freshman year, making plays on the football in year 2. That could be Andrew Makuba coming on, starting to play with that freedom in a new scheme, which there's still an adjustment period for guys, even though they've had a lot of experience. And then it's, for me, it's one thing you want to hear right now, too, is one of those freshman safeties kind of making a move, saying not that they're competing for a 2 deep, but making a move because we're going to have injuries. Injuries are going to happen. It's a part of football. So you want to hear if one of those two guys, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, Filsamy, is really making a move right now to where if there's some time missed by somebody, Texas is fully confident bringing one of those guys into a game.
Michael Taft did have quite a few interceptions last year. He's back there, and he has been that's one of the reasons he plays. He's always where he's supposed to be, and when he gets an opportunity interception, he seems to make it happen. So good stuff. Specialists will get a lot of attention later today as well. Bert Auburn, obviously your kicker, but the punter position, they want to see what those guys can do in live action, period. It is a battle right now between Michael Kern, the scholarship punter out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, as well as Charlie Ferris and Ian Ratliff out of Atascocita, young man. Those three are going at it. We may hear about how Bert Auburn hit a 50-yarder with the clock running out in the second quarter or something like that. But even if we hear that, okay, the real battle going on right now in specialist is at punter.
Yeah, no, it is. And look, I think Michael Kern's going to get every chance to win this job. Scholarship punter, big leg. But the fact that he went in for the spring kind of puts him behind the 8 ball a little bit with that. So I think he's going to be given every opportunity to win this job, but he's got to go win it. Then special teams-wise, Bobby, the Gunners. Because, look, I think Trey Wisner will play some situational gunner. I'm not sure full time.
Hey, I got to tell you this.
I know what Sark said.
I know. I got to relate the story because I was sitting right there. I'm the one that asked him.
Right.
I asked Sark, what Cedric Baxter's injury? Is there a trickle down effect here? Point blank. Because I go, look, Baxter gets injured. Now you're the guy that you thought was going to be your big time guy at gunner on punts was going to be Trey Wisner because he's physical, fast, and really, Sark even said he's a baller, right? Sark recounted how Devontae Smith, the Heisman winner in 2020, was not only the punt returner on that team, Devontae Smith was the gunner on that team. And Sark was like, look, sometimes guys are just ballers.
Yeah.
And so I know you say that. I know, and I agree with you. It was like even running back is a different position than wide receiver when it comes to hits, right? And so I hear you, and I was thinking the same way. And Sark was like, well,
Well, Sark's probably saying, we're only punting 3 times a game, so it's 3 plays, right? It's 3 plays. He can play 3 more plays over the course of a season. He's hoping that's 42 plays or so, right? So it's not like the days of Shane Leckler punting 12 times for A&M against Rice, So it's not like we're having a lot of snaps here for the gunner. But it'll be interesting. I will say this: Jaden Blue was a backup gunner. Is he really going to be a backup gunner?
You can't have both. You can't put both those guys. Yeah. We'll see what the head coach says. But he didn't say no. I'll put it that way. And he is going to play guys like Michael Taff and Mo Blackwell on special teams as well, because he likes what they bring. I mean, Jeff Banks thinks the world of those two, clearly. All right, Jerry, that's going to do it for this morning's conversation. We'll be back later today with what we hear from the scrimmage. It is the Longhorns' first scrimmage of the fall camp. I believe 9 days or 10 days now into the practice setting for the Longhorns. All right, that's going to do it. We'll have more for you later today here at On Texas Football. Make sure you stop by and join us for the conversation as well at ontexasfootball.com. It is your place for nonstop news, conversation, and more about the Texas Longhorns. For Gerry Hamilton, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been the Saturday Conversation on Texas Football. Welcome.